We like welcome back to House Education on Wednesday, March 18th, 2026. Committee continues to discuss moving forward on achieving some of the priorities of Act 73. I did want to, before we start, to sort of give the committee an update as to what's occurring outside of our committee. So House Human Services has been dealing with pre-K. They're going to have language that will come to us to look at. It is not, I don't think, proposing any radical changes to much of anything. One of the things that they're trying to address in it is equity of access, especially in the Northeast Kingdom, where there's very little access to pre-K. Not sure if that's just there's nobody up there to provide pre-K issue.
Say because of providers.
Yeah. So, and maybe some funding changes. I think what we'll end up looking at is something that will need some understanding of is it going to put more burden on the education fund rather than less. Again, special education is sort of on hold, awaiting the study that's going to be due back in December. This is a study that JFO is overseeing, a contractor on. CTE is the other big one. Commerce continues to work on that. They have time because there's a CTE bill coming over from the Senate, which doesn't have much in it. It's just intent language, but it's a vehicle for them to be able to take a little longer. They, at this point, have really only sort of coalesced around, would say, an order to update the rules by the State Board of Education, which everybody seems to be in strong support of, and then maybe a task force to study, like, all right, how are we going to deal with governance and funding of CT in the future? That's a big unknown that still probably won't be decided by the end of this session. That's kind of a big one. I sort of live with the concern that we could, really struggle and all that, and find out that, ultimately CTE becomes the biggest challenge that we can't overcome in order to have a foundation formula that works.
One more of those unknowns.
Yeah, which is to say that, the unknowns, I think, continue to be a bit of a block for many people moving forward with something more definitive. Period. Yeah.
On the CTE piece, I mean, I appreciate it. Was that it on your updates, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to cut them off a little more. On the CTE front, I continue to feel concerned about even updating rules at this point in time, putting time and effort into task force and updating rules when we're not sure whether, or I guess I'm not sure whether the education committee and CTE's education, whether we are going to get behind what I have heard a lot of support for, which is regional middle high schools. And my goal, I'm talking personally now, anything else, but my goal has always been to increase programming for students in middle and high school CTE programming. And I continue to be quite supportive of regional middle and high schools for many different reasons that I've explained because we've said it many times, but moving forward with the task force about funding and all of those things when we're still kind of unsure about the direction of regional middle and high schools feels premature. It's almost like, does that drive us in a direction as opposed to us driving the direction? Still sitting at a higher level of a goal of what I want to see for our kids.
We'll see what the language says. It's not going to bypass us, but it will be
Understood,
later.
But I understand that, but I've always had questions about the validity of all of our task forces and our study. I want us to be absolutely certain what our goals are. And at this point in time, when this conversation keeps coming up, my goals feel a little more fuzzy around from the past. This has always been an issue for us. How are we delivering funding? High quality special CTE system.
Yeah.
And I think things are changing now. And I think they're changing because needs are changing. And access needs to change with those needs that are changing. CTE is a different animal than it was even 10 years ago, even 5 years ago.
That's the sort of the status of those big questions that continue to sit out there as unknowns. All right. We have to continue down a path. You're going to continue down path that we put in front of us yesterday. We need, therefore, to discuss in detail two things. What are the boundaries of our CSAs? So that's just line drawing. And two, what are the responsibilities of our CSAs in terms of moving us toward newer, larger districts? We'll have to start figuring out how we want to put that in language. But let me just throw out this as an exercise. Please just sort of accept in a world in which this is where we're headed. And we say, okay, CISA, you are in charge of bringing people together to form newer, larger districts. What parameters do we want to, what guidelines do we want to have that says these districts need to be
Roughly 4,000.
roughly 4,000 students? We'll put that out there as one thing.
And as practical.
These,
That-
yes, these are, I mean, there's nothing in here that mandates anything. Let's be very clear. This is what we are mandating, our conversations and goals.
So there would still be a room for, if there was a small district that was like, we have an elementary, we have a high school, it's never gonna be 4,000, there'd be room for them to argue they can stay alive.
Yeah.
You're gonna have
Yeah,
to.
well, I mean,
Assets.
only the legislature can ultimately put in place those changes.
Right.
But more importantly, I mean, we also need to think about what is the process going to look like to get there. Maybe next year's job, but yes, but Leah, this locked nobody into anything.
Okay.
It is literally, as we spoke about yesterday, facilitation, to facilitate conversations within their season. Is that correct?
Yes. Other thoughts?
I'm not sure how to word it exactly, but if there is, and I think there's pretty wide agreement on moving toward regional middle and high schools, maybe there needs to be some way to consider what the existing possibilities of regional middle and high schools would be, including career and technical centers. That's what I said, if you kind of build it around.
I said yesterday.
Yeah.
Right. Should that be part of?
Should that be part of those merger conversations?
Well, one of the reasons when I was making the map that I just presented, that I was thinking of the tech centers is because we've talked so much about the value of our tech centers, especially in growing Vermont, but also because aren't many of them already attached to really high quality general education high schools?
I can't tell you about whether
Okay.
all of these high schools are any better than any other high
I know
schools.
the two that I'm aware of in my area, although I will say North Country is in its own boat for maybe needing a new building. But like the facility itself was great. And Green Mountain Tech Center is attached to Lamoille, which seems like it's thriving. So like those could be regional high schools. Those are just two examples, obviously.
So what I wrote down is said goal of regional high schools with improved access to CTEs.
Right.
STDs.
Yeah.
It's important.
Programming, yeah.
I feel like another part of the conversation that sort of has been talked about throughout the years is like, how can we get our CTE students also throughout the day to be a bigger part of our general education community? And so having them in proximity to each other allows sort of that flexibility, or general education kids to try out something CTEs that are full-time.
Which is why I keep saying programming instead of centers.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I think it's about programming. Because it can exist in many places.
Yeah.
The programming, some of the programming exists in many.
Yeah,
And I think Leland agrees, like for a bird, you're kind of, where you have, your kids have to travel, right?
Josh, is that a hand up?
list when I went down.
Um,
Because I was gonna go on with the conversation, but we're not hashing that out here, so it wasn't necessary to drag it further.
Held the hash.
I'm trying really hard.
Try to grow.
Hold the hash.
So I mean, think about it this way. These CISAs are agents for change. What is the change that we want them to try to create in their areas? So we have said districts, to the extent practical, of roughly 4,000 students. We have said with a goal of them promoting the idea of regional high schools and middle schools with improved access to CTE programming. And so, as we all like to do, I'm going to take that back to my general area where I live. And, you know, this would work because they need to be thinking about a regional high school and middle school as opposed to three. But I appreciate that.
Don't know if the words are right, but special ed access and development, like to do more, better, insert word here. Like, I don't know, like we talk about, like, what is Act, what is it? 173, right? Like to maybe try and implement it with more fidelity through the CISAs.
Well, I think, you know, right here, we're talking about more specifically about creating the goal. We're on the goal of creating newer, larger districts to build scale. I think what you're talking about is one of the absolute goals we want of CISAs, which is to improve access to special education services at a lower cost.
And I'm just thinking, like, if we're putting these things, what do we want the CISAs to do?
Yeah.
Might as well, even if it isn't part of the Act 73 verbiage, still put it in anyways.
Yes, I mean, and so as we move on to like the role of CPs, in the language we had yesterday, which said,
Yeah.
it said a CISA must, or the members of a CISA must say that the CISA has to do the following 3 out of 6. We could say we got to do consolidation talks and special education, improving special education services, and just say that's what it has to be.
I think you could just add on the financial and just tell them what to do.
Yes, and that is an option. To mandate it rather than say pick 3 and have at it. I think, you know, I think that we would mandate newer, larger district conversations. I think we've heard time and time again that the real opportunity for savings is special ed services. So I could be totally supportive of mandating that.
Regional.
Back office services seems so logical.
Just wondering too, as Josh was talking about Act 173, and I guess I was thinking of not just implementation with fidelity, but also professional development.
Well, so now
So now how are we tied to the AOE? I guess that's my question. Is it tied to the AOE or should it?
well, I was just thinking about, I mean, we're now listing all six. So I think what I would say is we would
Yes.
mandate some. But then you've got to think about the capacity of a brand new season, what they're able to do. But those, I mean, we know where the opportunities are. It's also professional development.
Especially when you're talking like Act 173, a lot of teachers out in the field saying, help me.
Can you, right, mandate them all? Pick the 2 or 3 that are, this is what you start on day 1, and then a phased in timeline to then you have to start working on this one by this time, right? And they're all important, but which are the most important, right? So then your phase in approach to all of them. It doesn't feel so daunting to a new CISA out of the gate, but in a couple of years, you got your feet under you and you're able to start.
Yeah, where I get nervous of sort of mandating what is supposed to be a sort of a subscription service. Are you then providing the unfunded mandate?
Right, but I think now, like with what we're doing, we're really taking away the subscription service idea as we go. I mean, it's still there, but as we go along, right? It seems like we're using this to move things in a different direction.
Yeah, well, we are. I would just be careful about biting off more than a CISA can chew in the initial years.
Going back to the consolidation portion of the CISA, and it may not save any money, it may be small, but it's a step in the direction that maybe is doable. Is having conversations to encourage light operating school districts to merge together.
What do you mean by like?
So like North Country has 15, I think, school districts in it, and you operate K-8 and you operate K-8 and you operate K-8. Instead of being 3 separate school districts, you're now 1 school district. It's kind of like, but you operate, or where I taught in Orleans Central, the 6 K-8 schools were 6 separate school districts. They became 1 school district, and the high school became a school district. So we went from 7 to 2. So it consolidated the number of school districts. Didn't really make any other changes, but it'd get your 100. It'd be a start in the direction of consolidating that might not be too much to bite off in the area.
I also, I wonder if it's even necessary to mandate, because if you're going to be.
It's something to consider as they're facilitating the conversation. I'm just saying, what conversations are they having with these school districts and SUs and SDs? Could be a conversation around, well, you all operate the same way. Instead of you being 6 school districts, or 3, maybe you get together. And
But
be
what if
1.
they decide that they would rather be different ones, so that your school
just saying-
district goes K to 12?
Parameters on what the CISAs are having as their conversations. And that's, group may say, no, we don't want to do this, but say, yeah, we kind of like to do this, and you're facilitating or getting together to do that.
Taking notes, Emily?
So I guess I want to go back to what my perception of a CISA is, and that is a larger region coming together to collaborate, which has been my whole push all along, and to create more opportunities and more efficiencies.
Yeah.
We're adding in another layer of a conversation that we're suggesting should happen. And I am in agreement with that, because it is saying this appears to be the right place, if it's a larger catchment area, to have these conversations and lead them. I would be very careful about us mandating too much of the direction we want to go if we're going to actually look at it as a collaborative model. And that is what a CISA is. It's collaborative. and it's bringing people together and having those goals. If we are going to go into it saying that, we're going to try to protect what we have in whatever way we have it, it won't ever work. And or we may not achieve all we could otherwise, I think. And so I just want to keep in mind about the collaborative model that creates opportunities and efficiencies.
Yeah. To not be too prescriptive. I think,
It's not mandating that you do it, but it's facilitating, because as we said, there are a lot of places who are ready to do this. They need some help doing it.
Yeah.
And it would be efficiency is,
I mean, I would probably disagree with you and say, no, I would rather have them with the goal of having K-12 systems.
well, yes, but that I think is,
But that's why I would,
that's down the road.
but then maybe the best thing to do is let them figure it out with a facilitator. With a goal towards efficiency. No problem with that. Further thoughts on,
Are we done with sorry, you raised your hand at the same time. Are we done with sort of the part of the process where we might like hear testimony?
no,
Okay, I am wondering, I
not
think.
necessarily, I should say, not
Not
necessarily.
necessarily. I think that maybe there's a lot to hear about how bargaining works within a CISA and how it's worked so far on the CISA that exists. Because I feel like that is gonna be something that they're gonna need to figure out, are we gonna have different CBAs within one CISA or?
I guess, I'm hesitant to dive into that deeply when we have no CISAs, we have no CISA employees yet. And we do have language within our BOCES bill that does speak to that.
Okay,
And CISOs really aren't going to be dealing with teacher CBAs.
To the extent that they might hire a full-time speech and language pathologist to then work in the schools who might want that speech and language pathologist for 1 day a week.
Right.
In order to create a full-time job for somebody. Again, I'm pretty sure the language that we have in the BOCES bill talks about sort of mirroring the collective bargaining agreements that exist within that district. Okay. And we'll have Beth in here in a little bit, she can in greater detail. But I think before we don't have any employees. Yeah, yes.
I was just going to add that I like what Emily was saying about the collaborative approach to CISAs, but I don't necessarily think, I think it can be, the work can be prescribed and you can still work collaboratively to get there.
Yes.
And I think we've heard that bringing the finance stuff under one roof is going to save money. We've heard that bringing special ed is going to increase opportunities and save money. And we think that larger districts are going to save money. So I'm okay with prescribing it all.
I think we kind of
So,
are creating.
yes, I think that so that is a list that you're making. My concern was, Rob was saying also, how about professional development? And
I think we just leave those things in there and say, like Josh was saying, when you get to it, consider these options too.
right. Yeah, yes, I would agree. Those are the 3 stars of CSIS.
Special ed, finance, and merger.
We're just being sort of number 1 priority because that's kind of the part that we're talking about right now. My hope and dream, short of me being able to rule the state and say this is the way it's all going to be, is that, between sort of, and this is something that we can think about okay, if you fail, then what? Do we put in if you fail, then what language? Because many of us believe we need to get there.
So you're talking about specifically.
Mergers.
Mergers.
What does failing look like to you?
You don't do it. Don't do it.
Right.
But don't do it to what extent? Like, don't have a single merger, let some states or some districts not merge, but you have many mergers, like,
You're right. Yeah,
don't merge
I
enough towns.
don't know the answer to your question. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Is 75%, is that to me success? Yeah. Representative Brady.
I wonder if some of it is around the size. And again, going back to the redistricting task force report and also Bruce Baker's testimony of like, there is too small and we have a bunch of that in terms of district size in the state. And so particularly on that end, there's if you don't, then someone else, the state board, is going to
Get you 4,000.
do it.
Or
And
get you
and this
above
was even,
500.
right, this is even lower than that. I'll go back and pull the exact, but I know it was a common, that both the task force report and that testimony from Bruce Baker talked about the biggest gains are in going from the really, really small to bigger and the threshold. Instead of
I mean, to the extent that we could, find a future legislature, I don't know I'm not too good on that stuff.
I don't know if it's a binding of future legislature though, so much as it's the parameters around.
I mean, Act 46 did.
But we tried that.
Right,
Absolutely.
exactly, that's what I'm saying, like it's.
We did do it.
I think that a little bit of teeth is something we need to think about. I think that for those who might say, we got to do more than this, they would probably argue the same, not to speak for Chris, but going through.
Yes, teeth.
Yes.
We need to think about what that might look like. Rate. More. So here's what I have written down. CISAs such as they exist, or CISAs such as we create them, will be required to work on districts, to collaborate to form newer, larger districts with a goal of 4,000 students to the extent practical. To set a goal of those districts encouraging the regionalization of middle schools and high schools. That they will work with districts to better provide special supports for students who need them in a way that is more efficient and can save money. And will work with districts to find ways in which the CISA can take over administration and finance duties.
Question, financial also, just throwing it out there, student data management. Consistency.
I don't.
Don't go there, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. I wonder, can they?
I would
They
say
probably
that.
can't.
I mean, almost everybody uses PowerSchool already.
Yeah, I just wonder to the extent a non-LEA could
Be that,
be the custodian of that stuff.
So did we make a decision at some point?
We've made no decisions by anyone.
Okay, it sounds like a decision has been made, even though it hasn't, that SUs are out. And that we're talking about, you need to have a district of 4,000, not an SU of 4,000. So like, I want to be able to support this, but I am still plugging for that tiny district that doesn't want to be 4,000. But would be part of an SU. And I just don't know where they stand.
Sit as priority.
So as I read it, and Peter will correct me if I'm wrong. this doesn't contemplate taking away SUs. It just discussion contemplates of the 119 districts that exist
Yeah.
under SUs, they would have to start consolidating. Nowhere do I think it says that we're going to remove SUs currently.
Right, okay.
So the answer to your question is correct. You bring up a good point. It does not speak to that. But the language that I have said, and that is in my head, and it's me only, is that the discussions would be about creating districts.
Right.
Now, there's nothing here that mandates it.
Yep.
It just says to create them. I would like to keep our eyes on the prize that newer, larger districts is a goal. There's nothing here that a CSIC collaborative group couldn't come back and say, we can't get there, but here's what we could do within the confines of an SU.
Right. And they could say, we did meet your goal mostly, and here's one tiny district that exists beside us, that could be one potential outcome.
That could be one potential outcome, but I think many of us who went through Act 46 and we sort of said, oh, and allowed that would be resistant to that.
So, and then that's where I feel like we're coming up short, because that resistance is what I'm fighting for.
Sure, but there's nothing here that says you couldn't propose something like that.
Right. But the phrase as practical is so subjective. Like, different people have different ideas about what is practical. For some of it's geography. For some of it's like the history and culture of a community.
Right. And to my mind, the fact that this is happening at a local CISA level
Yeah.
would be much more in tune with that than us trying to define it.
Right, you're right, you're right.
I mean, I think that's the language that kind of gives the give in that whole concept. I mean, it's sort of squishy by design.
That's the phrase of the day.
Squishy by design. Like so many things we do.
So to think about. Teeth. What if we don't get there? Or throw out a deadline? Mandatory, it's got to be these three. And here's the list of the other things that you should be looking at. Anything else?
Even though we don't have control of it, policy and money kind of go together. And we'll bring up yet again timelines and how foundation formula interplays with this. Because we could set policy timelines around this that might be in conflict to foundation. Just keeping that in.
Yep. So teeth and timeline then become something that we gotta deal with. Yeah.
Outside of these four walls too.
Yeah. All right. So we'll